right, so this is the third and final video for the Allspark. We're going to take this, we're going to break it apart, and we're going to flatten it out, getting ready for our laser cutter. So the first thing we want to do here is we want to just create a copy of all of this. So I'm just going to highlight all of this and hit the M button. And make sure that this says body up here and not faces or anything else. I've got 6 of them selected. That's good. There are 6 sides. And I want to create a copy. And once I've done that, I'm going to drag my copy off back behind like this. I'm going to actually drag it pretty far. So like that-ish. So maybe 3 or 4 times farther than one side, right? And then I'm going to click OK. Now in my body section, I've got 2 sets of bodies now. I'm going to figure out which are which because I'm going to organize them a little bit. So my first 6 are the assembled ones. So I'm going to actually create a folder in here, a new group called Assembled. And then I'm going to take those first 6 bodies. I'm going to click on the first one, hold down the Shift key, click on the last one. Now select all of them in between. Dump that into the assembled one. I'm going to do another one where I'm going to do a new group, and I'm going to call it Flattened. And this will help me, whoops. This will help me later when I'm trying to hide stuff. I can quickly hide all of the flattened ones and all of the assembled ones just by going like, oh, I don't want to see the assembled, I'll turn those off, turn them back on. Turn off the flattened ones, turn them back on. So I can do that. Now, once I hide something, I always like to go back and hit the home button. That way Fusion knows to focus on just that one set of stuff and not on everything that's even the invisible stuff. So I've got my flattened one here now. So what I want to do is I'm going to make basically a sort of a T shape. I'm going to take this top side here is going to be my stationary one. So that one's going to stay there. I'm going to take this right side and rotate it up to flat. And the left side, I'm going to rotate the other way. So the 2 sides are going to go whoop, like this. Then this back side back here, I'm going to rotate this up to flat. And then the last one's kind of the tricky one. So that's my top up here. I'm going to take my bottom piece down here, and I'm going to kind of, it's like down here, I'm going to fold it out to like that. So I'm going to rotate it all the way up twice. And this one's going to rotate up as well. So they're going to rotate. It's going to be like this, and they're going to kind of unfold as they come up, if you could imagine that. So that's my goal in the end. So let's go ahead and get it done. So first thing I want to do is I'm going to click on my right side. Well, if I click on my right side and then I hit move, watch what happens. It naturally wants to move a face instead of the whole body. So I try not to click before I move. I try to hit the move command first, the M key first, and then select the object. So I'm going to take this one to do, and I'm actually going to rotate it. This will make my life a little bit easier. I'm going to grab up here on the corner of one of the edges. That way, as I rotate it, see how it rotates at that corner edge? It's just going to make my life easier. I don't have to do it that way. And I'm going to keep rotating until I get to 90 or negative 90, depending on which way it's rotating. Now remember, the only difference between negative and positive is direction. So in this case, Fusion thought the other direction was the positive direction. So negative 90 is the same as positive 90, except one is, counterclockwise, the other one is clockwise. Doesn't matter if it's positive or negative. So I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to move it over just a tad. So yeah, so mine is like, notice here the Y distance moves. So once I drag it in the direction I want to go, I can look in the table and see what number is changing. And I want this to be a really small number. So it's going to have to be negative. So I'm going to say negative 0.1. I want to just have a little bit of opening there so the laser doesn't cut it twice as it comes through. So I'm going to say, okay. That one's ready to rock and roll. All right, awesome. And now this one, do the same thing. So I'm going to click over here, and I'm going to say move, M key for move. I'm going to click, this time I'm going to click right up here on the edge because I want to rotate on this edge. And I can see there's my rotation movement. I'm going to rotate till I see it say 90 degrees, right? It's tricky right there. And then I'm going to move it just a tad bit in this direction. Again, negative 0.1 is good. And I'm going to say, okay. I'm going to look at it from the top, and you can kind of see, well, let me just look at it from here. So I've flipped the two sides, right? Two sides, flip them up. Awesome. Now I'm going to flip the back one up as well. So here I'm going to do M for move. I'm going to zoom in here. I'm going to try and grab right on this edge right there. That one, when I rotate, it will rotate up. And now I'm going to rotate 90. And in this case, I'm going in the positive direction just because that's what Fusion thought I should go. And then I'm going to say, I'm going to move it, back at it. Yeah, I want to move it this way. So I don't want to move it -1 whole centimeter. I want to just move it -0.1. Just a really small movement. Now, this part is kind of the fun and tricky part. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to first rotate this one down 90 degrees to be flat with the front face. And then I'm going to try and select both of them and then rotate them flat to the top. So let's see how that works. We'll see if I can pull it off. So I'm going to go down here to the bottom. I'm going to hit the move command. I'm going to grab this one right at that corner. And yep, so this is the one I want. I'm going to move this one 90 degrees. Perfect. And I'm going to move it down. And this one's going to be a positive number, so I'm going to move it down 0.1 instead of -0.1. Enter. And now I've got it flattened, but I want to rotate both of those up now. So all I'm going to do is do a move command. And now I'm going to select, I don't know if I can get both of them up there actually. No, I can't do both at once. So that was not a good way to do it. Oh well, live and learn. So right here, I'm going to select this one. I'm going to rotate it up to 90 degrees, and I'll have to deal with the other one in just a second. And then I'm going to rotate it this way, but I want that to be about -0.1. A little small move. Enter. So that's nice, just like that. And now this one, it's got to come back and do a similar thing to it. So I'm going to do a move command because I still need to tip it one more 90 degree. And at this point, it doesn't really matter where I grab it. I'll just be consistent and grab it there. And then 90 degrees. And I'm going to click OK. Now I'm going to look at this from the top. And I can see that there's this one underneath. You can see that one underneath there. It's right underneath there. So I'm going to do a move command real quick. I'm going to click on this one. I'm just going to drag it so I can see it from the top. And now I'm going to just keep dragging until it's just barely clear. And I'm going to play around with this until I get something. I want to say that it was 14.5, so maybe 14.6. Nope, 0.7. There we go. Just something where I get it just barely clear. Make sure when you're doing this work that you're flat on the top and you're not tipped a little bit. Because if you're tipped a little bit, look how far apart it looks. Whereas if you're tipped this way, it looks like it's overlapped. So make sure you're square on the top so you can see it. And I'm going to click OK. Now, the one thing I want to do is during this process, I may have made a mistake and they may not be in the same level. Let me show what that looks like. So right here, these look like they're on the same level, but this one clearly isn't. So my last step is I'm going to just go back here. I'm going to make them all on the same level. And to do that, I'm going to use the Align tool. I'm going to click on Line, and I'm going to say From. So the one I'm going to make this one the one I'm moving everything to. So I'm going to do this one From, and then To. And I'm going to say OK. And again, I'm going to avoid using the center point. So don't try and grab an actual point or it'll overlap the points. And we don't want that. So align the face to the face. Okay? And I'm just going to go around to each one of these. Face to face. And this one, from this face to that face. Now I know that all four of those are perfectly aligned. So one last one. This face to that face. And you saw how it brought it straight up. And then I'm going to click OK. Now all 6 of them are perfectly flat and aligned to each other. From the right. And yep, now we've got a nice flat plane. We are almost done. I'm looking at it from the top real quick. Make sure there's a tiny bit of space between all of them. And that's my Allspark. So that's fully flattened and ready to go. My last step is simply to make a sketch of this so I can do a DXF file for this. So to do that, I like to use a construction plane. So I'm going to click this plane, and I'm going to say make a construction plane. This is an offset plane here. And I want to create the plane. For me, I like creating the plane just a little bit inside the object. So I'm going to do so up is positive. I'm going to go down a little bit, negative 0.1. Now I'm inside the object, so I can get a good outline of how big it is. And I'm going to click OK. Now I want to create a sketch. I'm going to use that sketch plane right there. And I'm going to do an intersect. So what this means, and I can show you from the side what it looks like. So my sketch plane runs right through. See how it runs right inside this? So it's going to be able to catch the outside edge of all my pieces and give me a shape for the laser cutter to cut around. All right, so I want to actually go here and go create, and I'm going to do project include, and I want to do an intersect. So what this does is it draws a line wherever your object is passing through the plane at. So intersect this one, this one, oh, so here's a notice how when I went over them, let me unselect those real quick. I was quiet because I didn't realize what was going on. Notice it doesn't actually draw anything because what I have is I have the selection filter set to entity, which means just the face. And because our sketch plane is below the surface doesn't touch the sketch plane at all, so it never includes it. But if I go to body, now it says wherever the body goes through the plane. Now watch what happens. When I hover over it, it shows me what it's going to draw. So I'm like, okay, that one's in there, that one's good, that one's good, that one's good, that one's good, and that one's good. So I'm going to click OK. I'm going to go back like this. Now what I'm going to do is hide the actual bodies, and that is the drawing that I'm going to export to my good friend Fusion 360. And don't worry about all these little dots. I don't like the fact that they put them, but Fusion or the laser won't cut a circle for every dot. It'll just go right through them. All right, so now what I'm going to do is I have that sketch. I need to save it as a DXF file, which is the file that I need for the laser cutter almost. So I'm going to come over here. I'm going to right click on my sketch 4. Actually, I'm going to change the sketch to layer 1. There's only going to be one layer in this one, so that's nice and convenient. And when okay, there it goes. And when I go to Fusion 360, I'm going to need to, or the next step, I need to know one last thing. I need to know one of the measurements. So I'm going to measure the height of my whole thing. So I'm going to go up here. I'm going to click on a line at the very top of my drawing, and then go down to the very bottom. I'm going to click on another line, and it's going to tell me how far apart those are. So the distance is 58.3. I'm going to need that number to scale my drawing in the next program called Inkscape. So I'm actually, I like to put it right here. So 58.3, I'm going to memorize that number. And I'm going to say close. I'm going to come over here and say layer 1. And I'm going to do dash 58, comma 300. So that looks like 58,300. I don't use periods in this because when you do file names, which we'll do later, a period will mean something different. So I use commas instead of decimal points here. I just need that number for later on, so I record it right there so I don't have to try and find it later. Okay. So next step, we need to create a DXF file. Right click on layer 1 and say save as DXF. I'm going to create, so here, let's see, I'm going to just create a folder for it. I'll show you how I create my folders for this kind of stuff. So I'm going to go to my engineering class. I'm going to go to Fusion 360. I'm going to go to Allspark. So I made a file called Allspark, which is what we're making, obviously. And I have one for my videos, but what I would do is have a new folder. I'm going to call this DXF files. And I'm going to come in here and I'm going to save this as layer 1, 58, 300. I'm going to put that number in there. Again, if I use a decimal here, I might a period, I might end up causing problems with file name stuff. So I'm going to avoid periods, save. And I'm good. Now I'm ready to go for the next video. I'll show you how to open an Inkscape and add all the graphics and art to the edges.